My wife tried to humiliate me with Christmas divorce papers. I calmly served eviction, exposed her secret debt and gambling, and took my freedom. Christmas morning was supposed to be about family, gifts, and joy. Instead, my wife handed me divorce papers right in front of her entire family. The room went silent for exactly 3 seconds before her mother started clapping. Then her sister joined in. Soon the whole living room erupted in celebration, as if I had just announced I was leaving forever. Finally, her mother spoke, not even trying to hide her smile. "She's been miserable for months. You two were never right for each other anyway." I looked around the room. Her father nodded approvingly. Her brother actually raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. Even her teenage nephew smirked from the corner where he had been playing on his phone. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, orchestrated. She had told them exactly what she was going to do, and they had all agreed to be there to witness my humiliation. My wife stood with her arms crossed, waiting for me to break down, beg, or make a scene. She wanted drama. She wanted me to give her family even more reasons to hate me. Instead, I folded the papers neatly and slipped them into my back pocket. "Interesting timing," I said, my voice perfectly steady. "Christmas morning and all." "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she replied. "We both know this marriage is over. I'm just being honest about it." Her sister laughed. "Honest. She's been planning this for weeks. We all have. You have no idea how relieved we are." I nodded slowly, taking in their faces. Every single person in that room looked at me like I was the problem. Like I was some burden finally lifted from their perfect family. They had no idea what was coming. "Well," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket, "since we're being honest and all, I have something for you too." I pulled out a crisp white envelope with an official-looking seal. Her confidence flickered for just a moment when she saw it, but she straightened up again. "What's that supposed to be?" she asked. "Your Christmas present," I said, holding it out to her. "Open it. In front of everyone." Her mother leaned forward eagerly. "What kind of game are you playing?" "No game," I replied. "She gave me papers. I'm giving her papers." "Fair trade, don't you think?" My wife snatched the envelope from my hand. She was trying to look confident, but I caught the slight tremor in her fingers as she tore it open. Her family crowded around her, eager to see what pathetic last-ditch effort I was making. The room went dead quiet as she unfolded the documents inside. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then recognition, then something close to panic. She read the first page twice before the color drained from her cheeks. "What is it?" her sister asked, trying to peer over her shoulder. My wife's hands were shaking now. She looked up at me with wide eyes, finally understanding that she had made a critical miscalculation. "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Read it out loud. Share it with the family. They're all here to support you, right?" Her voice cracked as she read the header aloud. "Notice of eviction. 30 days to vacate the premises." The celebration died instantly. Her mother's smug expression melted into confusion. Her sister stopped mid-laugh. Even the nephew looked up from his phone. "What does that mean?" her father asked, his tone suddenly serious. She kept reading, her voice getting quieter with each word. "Failure to comply with lease termination. Legal action will be pursued. All personal belongings must be removed." "I don't understand," her mother said, looking between us. "What lease? You two own that house." I couldn't help but smile. "Actually, no, I own that house. Bought it 2 years before we got married. Never added her name to the deed. Funny how that works." The silence that followed was deafening. You could practically hear their minds racing. My wife dropped into the nearest chair like her legs had given out. "But you can't just kick me out," she stammered. "I live there. I have rights." "What rights exactly?" I asked, genuinely curious. "You're not on the mortgage. You're not on the deed. You never contributed a dime to the down payment. Legally speaking, you're a tenant, and I'm your landlord, and your landlord just gave you notice." Her brother stood up, puffing out his chest like he was going to intimidate me. "You can't do this. This is vindictive. She's your wife." "Was my wife," I corrected. "According to the divorce papers, she just served me. She doesn't want to be married anymore. Can't have it both ways. Either we're married and we work through our problems, or we're not married and she finds somewhere else to live." Her mother's face had gone red. "This is cruel. Where is she supposed to go?" "That's not really my problem anymore, is it?" I said, settling back into my chair. "She made her choice. Adult choices come with adult consequences." My wife was frantically flipping through the pages looking for some loophole. "This can't be legal. You can't just evict someone on Christmas. Actually, the eviction notice is dated December 1st, I said. I've been carrying it around for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Today seemed perfect. The room erupted in angry voices. Her family started shouting at me all at once, heartless, vindictive, cruel. But I noticed something interesting. Not one of them offered to let her stay with them. Not her parents, not her sister, not her brother. They were outraged on her behalf, but no one opened their home. You planned this, she accused, her voice shaking with rage. You knew I was going to ask for a divorce. I suspected, I admitted. Hard to miss the signs when someone stops coming home 3 nights a week and starts hiding their phone. But I wasn't certain until you handed me those papers just now. Her sister's jaw dropped. You've been planning to kick her out for weeks? I've been planning to protect myself, I corrected. There's a difference. See, I learned something important about your sister over the past few months. She's really good at making plans that benefit her, but she never thinks about the consequences. She never considers that other people might be making plans too. My wife looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't finished. This family had spent years treating me like I wasn't good enough for their princess. Time for them to see who she really was. She jumped up from the chair, the eviction papers scattered on the floor. This is insane. I helped pay for that house. I've been making payments too. Really? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Show me. Show your family exactly which payments you've been making. She froze. Her family looked at her expectantly, waiting for her to prove me wrong. The seconds ticked by, and her silence said everything. The mortgage comes out of my account, I continued. Property taxes, my account. Insurance, my account. Utilities, my account. Even the groceries come from my account. So please, enlighten us about these payments you've been making. Her mother stepped forward. She contributes in other ways. She takes care of the house. She cooks. She hasn't cooked a meal in 8 months, I interrupted. And the only thing she cleans is her own makeup off the bathroom counter. When she's actually home, that is. My wife's face was bright red. Now you're making me sound like some kind of freeloader. I'm not making you sound like anything. I'm stating facts. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do have legal rights to the house. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out another document. That's why I had my lawyer draw up this summary. Her father's eyes narrowed. What lawyer? The one I hired 6 weeks ago, I said, unfolding the paper. Right after I found the credit card statements you thought you'd hidden so well. The color drained from her face again. What credit card statements? Her brother asked. The ones for the card she opened in her maiden name, I said. The ones with $23,000 in debt that I knew nothing about. The ones she's been making minimum payments on while telling me we needed to cut back on expenses. Her brother shook his head. That's impossible. She wouldn't do that. I handed him the lawyer's summary. Read it yourself. She's been living a double life for months. Designer clothes charged to secret cards, expensive dinners I never went to, hotel rooms when she claimed to be visiting friends. The room went dead silent as he read. His expression changed with each line. When he finished, he looked at his sister like he was seeing her for the first time. This says you owe almost $30,000, he said quietly. It's not that simple, she protested. I was going to tell him. I just needed time to figure it out. Her mother grabbed the paper from her son. As she read, her face went through the same transformation. Jewelry, spa treatments, a weekend at the Ritz-Carlton. I needed those things, my wife said, her voice getting desperate. I was stressed. The marriage was falling apart. I deserved to treat myself. With money you didn't have, her father said, his voice cold. Money you hid from your husband. I leaned back and watched the family dynamic shift in real time. 5 minutes ago they were celebrating my departure. Now they were looking at their daughter and sister like she was a stranger. And the best part, I said, is that according to the law, since we're married, I'm technically responsible for her debts. But since she's the one filing for divorce, and since she opened these accounts in secret, my lawyer thinks we can make a case that she committed fraud. My wife's eyes went wide. Fraud? Financial fraud against a spouse. It's a real thing. Look it up. I stood and straightened my jacket. So here's what's going to happen. You have 30 days to move out of my house. You have 90 days to figure out how you're going to pay back the money you stole. And you have until the divorce is final to decide whether you want to handle this quietly or whether you want me to press charges. Her family stood in stunned silence. The golden child had just revealed herself to be a liar and a thief, and they didn't know how to process it. Her mother was the first to break the silence. "Now wait just a minute. You're being unreasonable. Marriages have problems, but you don't just throw someone out on the street." "Throw someone out?" I laughed. She threw herself out the moment she decided to file for divorce. "I'm just making it official." Her father stepped forward, trying to take control. "Look, you're both upset. Why don't you take some time to cool down and work this out like adults?" "We tried that approach," I said, "but it's hard to work things out with someone who's been lying about everything." Then I turned to my wife. "Tell them about the gambling, sweetheart." Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone again and showed them a screenshot. Online poker, slots, sports betting, all from her laptop, all charged to those same secret credit cards. $2,700 in October alone. Her brother snatched the phone, staring at the screen. "Jesus. How much did you lose?" "It's not losing," she said quickly. "It's entertainment. Everyone does it." "Everyone doesn't hide it from their spouse," her sister said, her voice sharp. "Everyone doesn't rack up $30,000 in debt doing it." I could see the family turning against her in real time. The same people who had been cheering her divorce papers 10 minutes ago were now looking at her like she was toxic. "And the best part," I continued, "is that she tried to use our joint savings to cover the gambling losses. 3 separate withdrawals of $2,000 each, money we were supposed to use for a vacation this spring." Her mother sat down heavily. "You spent their vacation money gambling?" "I was going to pay it back," my wife protested. "I had a system. I was close to winning big." Her father shook his head in disgust. "That's what every addict says." "I'm not an addict," she snapped. "And I don't need this from any of you. You're supposed to be supporting me." "Supporting you in what?" her brother asked. "Lying, stealing, gambling away your future?" I watched the family implode with quiet satisfaction. They had spent years making me feel like I wasn't good enough for their precious daughter. Now they were seeing what I had been dealing with for months. "Here's what really happened," I said, addressing the room. "She got in over her head financially. She knew I'd find out eventually, so she decided to file for divorce and try to take half of everything I owned. Clean slate, fresh start. Let me deal with the debt she created." Her mother looked at her daughter. "Is that true?" The silence stretched out until it became an answer. "But it backfired," I continued, "because she never bothered to check who actually owned what. She assumed because we were married, she had rights to everything. She assumed I'd just roll over and give her whatever she wanted. She assumed wrong." Her sister was shaking her head. "This is insane. How did we not know about any of this?" "Because she's good at lying," I said simply. "Really good. She had me fooled for months. But eventually the truth comes out, it always does." My wife was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. "You planned this whole thing," she accused. "You set me up." "I protected myself," I corrected. "Big difference. You made your choices. I just made sure I wouldn't go down with your ship." Her father looked at me with something that might have been respect. "How long have you known about the debt?" 6 weeks. About the gambling. 4 weeks. About the divorce papers. I suspected for 2 weeks, but I wanted to see how far she'd go. Turns out pretty far. The room fell silent again. Her family was processing the fact that their celebration had turned into a nightmare, and my wife was finally realizing that her master plan had just blown up in her face. She collapsed back into the chair. "Wait, can we talk about this privately? Maybe we can work something out." "Work what out exactly?" I asked. "You just handed me divorce papers in front of your entire family. You made this public. So let's keep it public." Her mother looked around helplessly. "Maybe you could stay with us for a while, honey, just until you figure things out." The silence that followed was telling. Her father shifted uncomfortably. Her brother suddenly found his coffee cup fascinating. Her sister stared at the floor. "Actually," her father said slowly, "our guest room is being renovated, and with your mother's back problems, we can't really handle the extra stress right now." My wife's jaw dropped. "Are you serious? I'm your daughter." "You're also a grown woman who made some very poor decisions," her mother said quietly. "We love you, but we can't enable this behavior." Her sister cleared her throat. "We don't have room either. The baby's crib is in the spare bedroom, and with my husband's work schedule." One by one, her family found excuses. The same people who had been celebrating her divorce were now backing away from actually helping her deal with the consequences. "So that's it," my wife said, her voice breaking. "You're all just going to abandon me." "Nobody's abandoning you," her brother said. "But you need to take responsibility for your actions. Figure out how to fix this mess you created." She turned to me with desperation in her eyes. "Please, I made mistakes." "Okay, I admit it. But we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll pay back the money." "With what money?" I asked. "You don't have a job. You don't have savings. You don't even have a credit score anymore after maxing out those cards." "I'll get a job. I'll do whatever it takes." I looked at her for a long moment. 6 months ago, maybe even 6 weeks ago, those words might have meant something, but not anymore. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "If you had just talked to me about the money problems, we could have worked it out. If you had admitted you had a gambling problem, we could have gotten you help. If you had been honest about anything, we might have saved this marriage." "I'm being honest now," she pleaded. "No, you're being desperate. There's a difference." I stood and walked toward the door. "You made your choice when you decided to lie, steal, and cheat your way out of our problems. You made your choice when you planned this public humiliation. You made your choice when you handed me those divorce papers." Her family watched in silence as she broke down completely. The confident woman who had orchestrated this whole scene was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood what she had thrown away. 30 days, I said from the doorway. "That's what the law requires. That's what you're getting. Use them wisely." Her mother called after me. "Where are you going?" I turned back one last time, home, to my house, to start the rest of my life without someone who thought I was stupid enough to let her destroy me. As I walked to my car, I could hear her sobbing through the window. Her family was trying to comfort her, but their voices were different now. The celebration was over. Reality had set in. I sat in my car for a moment, processing what had just happened. For months I had felt like I was losing my mind, questioning my own judgment, wondering if I was the problem. Now I knew the truth, and the truth had set me free. 3 weeks later I was sitting in my living room, actually enjoying the silence. No drama, no lies, no walking on eggshells, wondering what financial bomb was going to explode next. Just peace. She had moved out 2 days earlier, taking only what was legally hers, which, as it turned out, wasn't much. Her clothes, her personal items, and the crushing weight of $30,000 in debt that was now entirely her problem. The divorce was moving quickly. When one party has documented evidence of financial fraud and the other party has no assets to fight over, lawyers tend to work efficiently. My attorney estimated another month before everything was finalized. I had changed the locks the day she left. Changed the alarm code, too. Funny how much safer your own home feels when you're not worried about someone sneaking around behind your back. My phone buzzed. A text from her sister. She's staying at a motel downtown. Lost her job at the retail store for missing too many shifts. Thought you should know. I deleted the message without responding. Her family had made their position clear that Christmas morning. They had celebrated when they thought I was the one getting kicked to the curb. Now that the tables had turned, they expected me to feel sorry for her. That wasn't how this worked. The house felt different now, bigger somehow. I had rearranged the furniture, gotten rid of things that reminded me of her lies. The credit card statements I had found hidden in her jewelry box were now evidence in my lawyer's files. The gambling apps she had tried to delete from her laptop had been recovered by a forensic specialist. Everything was documented. Everything was legal. Everything was final. My lawyer called yesterday with an update. She had tried to contest the eviction, claiming I had abandoned her without support. The judge reviewed the evidence and dismissed her motion in under 10 minutes. Financial fraud against a spouse combined with filing for divorce meant she had no grounds to claim abandonment. I walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Actually had food in it now. Amazing how much grocery money you save when you're not unknowingly funding someone's gambling addiction. The doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw her standing on the porch, looking smaller than I remembered. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "I need to talk to you," she said. "We're divorced in 3 weeks. Whatever you need to say, your lawyer can say to my lawyer." "I don't have a lawyer anymore," she admitted. "I can't afford one." I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered the hotel receipts, the secret credit cards, the months of lies. "That's unfortunate," I said, "but not my problem." "I'm sleeping in my car," she said quietly. "You're 32 years old with a college degree. Figure it out." She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "What happened to you?" You used to care about people." "I still care about people," I replied. "I just learned the difference between people who deserve my care and people who exploit it." She stood there another minute, maybe hoping I would change my mind, maybe waiting for the old me to emerge and invite her back in. But that version of me was gone. He had died somewhere between finding the gambling debts and realizing his wife had been planning his humiliation for weeks. "The man I married wouldn't have done this," she said finally. "The woman I married wouldn't have needed me to," I replied, and closed the door. I watched through the window as she walked back to her car. She sat there for a few minutes, probably crying, probably hoping I would come after her. I didn't. 6 months ago, I thought my job was to save her from her problems. Now I understood that my job was to save myself from becoming her next victim. Best decision I ever made. I drove away from her parents' house that Christmas morning with the windows down, letting the freezing air slap me awake. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it. Relief. Pure, unfiltered relief. It rushed through my chest like cold water after a fire, washing away the smoke of lies I'd been breathing for longer than I cared to admit. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't need music. The silence was perfect. I kept replayed the scene in my head, not with anger, not even with satisfaction at first, but with a strange, quiet wonder. How had I lived with that level of deception for so long and still woken up every morning trying to be a better husband? How many nights had I lain awake, blaming myself for her distance, her coldness, her sudden bursts of rage over nothing? I had twisted myself into knots trying to fix problems I didn't even know existed, while she was out creating new ones with my money and someone else's hotel sheets. And yet, beneath the relief, there was grief, real grief. Not for the woman crying on that couch, that version of her had never truly existed, but for the marriage I thought we had. I grieved the mornings we used to laugh over burnt toast, the road trips where we sang off-key to songs only we knew, the quiet evenings when she'd fall asleep on my chest during a movie, and I'd carry her to bed like she was the most precious thing in the world. Those moments had felt real. They had been real to me. Knowing now that she was capable of such calculated betrayal didn't erase the love I had felt. It just made it feel stolen. Like someone had reached inside my chest and spent years hollowing it out while smiling at me across the dinner table. That's the part no one warns you about. The betrayal itself is devastating, but the theft of your own memories is worse. Every good memory now carried a shadow. Was she thinking about the credit card balance when she kissed me goodnight? Was she calculating how much she could spend that month when she told me she loved me? Did any of it mean anything to her? Or was I always just the safe, stupid guy who paid the bills while she lived the life she actually wanted? I felt foolish. Deeply, painfully foolish. Not because I had trusted her, trust isn't weakness, but because I had ignored my own instincts for so long. The late nights I excused, the hidden phone, the sudden password on her laptop, the way she flinched when I walked into the room unannounced. I had seen the signs and chosen to believe the version of her I fell in love with instead of the version standing in front of me. That was on me. And that realization hurt more than the debt, more than the lies, more than the public humiliation she tried to serve me on Christmas morning. But here's the strange thing. The pain didn't break me, it clarified me. For years I had measured my worth by how well I could keep her happy, how much I could provide, how patiently I could endure her moods and criticism. I had confused being needed with being loved. I had mistaken her reliance on my income, my stability, my willingness to absorb her chaos for genuine partnership. I had let her family's quiet disdain chip away at me until I started believing I was lucky she stayed. And in doing so, I had handed her every ounce of power in our marriage. The moment she slid those divorce papers across the coffee table, something inside me snapped into place. Not rage, though rage was there, but certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty that I was done being the reliable fool in someone else's story. So I gave her the ending she thought she wanted. I let her believe for one brief shining moment that she had won, that she had outsmarted me, that her family's applause was justified. And then I showed her, calmly and without raising my voice, what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, patience for stupidity, and love for unconditional surrender. I didn't do it to hurt her, I did it to reclaim myself. People think revenge is about making the other person suffer. Real revenge, healthy revenge, is refusing to let them keep the parts of you they tried to destroy. My dignity, my peace, my future. Those were mine, and she wasn't taking them with her. Driving home that morning, I felt the weight of 8 years lift off my shoulders. Not all at once. Grief doesn't work that way, but enough that I could breathe deeply for the first time in longer than I could remember. The house I pulled into wasn't just bricks and mortar anymore. It was mine again, truly mine. No more tiptoeing around someone else's moods, no more scanning bank statements with dread, no more wondering which version of my wife I would get that day. I walked through the door, took off my coat, and stood in the quiet living room. Sunlight was pouring through the windows. Actual Christmas morning sunlight, and for a moment I just stood there and let it hit my face. I laughed out loud, alone in my own house, because the absurdity of it all finally caught up with me. She had tried to ruin me on the holiest, happiest morning of the year, surrounded by the people who were supposed to love her most, and instead she had handed me my freedom wrapped in her own humiliation. I didn't hate her. That's what surprised me the most. I pitied her, yes, how empty a person must feel to orchestrate something so cruel. But hate requires energy, and I was done spending mine on her. What I felt was closer to liberation, like I had been living with a parasite I didn't know was there, and the moment it was removed, my whole body remembered what it felt like to be healthy. I spent the rest of that Christmas day doing things I hadn't done in years. I cooked a steak exactly the way I like it. I watched the basketball game without someone sighing every time I cheered. I drank a beer on the couch with my feet on the coffee table. Small things, ridiculously small things. But they felt enormous, because they were mine again. Later that night, I sat on the back patio with a glass of bourbon and looked up at the stars. I thought about the man I had been when I met her, hopeful, open-hearted, certain that love meant never giving up on someone. I thought about the man I was becoming now, wiser, quieter, unwilling to trade my peace for anyone else's approval, and I realized I didn't hate either version of myself. The first one had to exist so the second one could be born. I forgave myself that night. For trusting too much, for ignoring red flags, for thinking love was supposed to hurt, for believing that if I just tried harder, was better, earned more, forgave faster, she would choose me the way I kept choosing her. I forgave her too, in a way. Not for her sake, she hadn't earned that, but for mine. Holding on to hatred would have kept her in my life longer than she deserved. Letting go was the final eviction notice I served, this time to the space she still occupied in my heart. 6 months later, when she showed up on my porch looking broken and small, I didn't feel triumph. I felt nothing. Not coldness, not cruelty, just the clean, neutral space where a wound used to be. The scar was there, but the bleeding had stopped long ago. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her well either. I simply don't wish for her at all. She is a chapter that ended, a lesson I paid for in full, and a reminder I will carry gently. Never again will I let someone else's chaos become my responsibility to fix. The house is quiet these days, but it's the good kind of quiet, the kind you earn. I cook what I want, sleep diagonally across the bed if I feel like it, and leave the thermostat exactly where I like it. I laugh louder, worry less, and trust slowly. I am becoming the man I always should have been, unapologetically myself, protective of my peace, and no longer willing to shrink to make someone else feel tall. That Christmas morning, she thought she was ending me. She didn't realize she was setting me free. And freedom, real freedom, feels a lot like Christmas morning when you're a kid again, full of possibility, bright with hope, and entirely beautifully yours.